Hey pilots, welcome to Jetworks build series. In this video we'll be building the Su-75 Checkmate. I've chosen to use FMS 64mm. Here we have the wing plate on a flat build surface and just taping up the best side of the wing plate just so we get a nice finish. Once you've done that, flip it over and remove the excess foam where your carbon fibre spars are due to go. The 1mm spars was quite tricky, as you can see here, so just take your time and pick it out as best as you can. Once you've sized up your support spars, just tape off the wing before you start applying your glue or epoxy or whatever it is you choose to use. This is just to ensure any excess does not spill over onto the wing plate. It leaves you a nice clean finish. Mix up your epoxy. Make sure you've got the right ratio so that you're sure that you get a good bond and it hardens up how it's supposed to. Once you fill up the spaces, just tease out the glue to the edge of the surface. Apply your supports and then some additional glue over the top and smear it out just to cover any gaps and remove the excess tape, excess glue, and apply a weight just to help keeping the panel as flat as possible and remove any natural bevels in the Depron. Once you're happy that the glue is set, gently remove your low-tack masking tape. As you can see, there's some small white spots, a couple of dots there where the glue has not met the build plate. That's just when you're teasing it out. Next step is a contoured battery tray, and there's 5 pieces for this. Here we have the 5 pieces laid out together, and this is a relatively quick and simple part of the build. Here I'm using 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. It's fantastic, there's very little surplus comes from it. Just take a light spray, offer it up to your next part and stick it down, instant tack. And again, just like the next step, spray the underside, offer it up and stick it down. With the last 2 parts, I use part number 4 and spray the underside, offer up to part number 5 and just line it up so that it's all even. And then using one of the inserts, I've put the insert over the underside of part number 3 just so that it can spray around the edge so that we've not got any surplus. If there was surplus there, we'd end up with a sticky battery tray. Once you're happy with that and it's stuck in, it doesn't take long to adhere. Add a little weight and just give it 10-15 minutes time to cure. Here with the plans, there is markings near the front, and I'm just marking it up so that we're ready to sand and feather down to the leading edge. This is actually forms the front. Here I'm just using a sharp razor blade and carefully removing as much of the foam as possible before we actually go to sanding it to get that nice shape. I use a palm sander and then just different stages of sandpaper with a block just to get a nice smooth finish. You want this as smooth as possible because this is where the air transition moves towards your EDF intake. So the next step, now that we've got the contoured battery tray, is attaching that to the wing plate and following up with the forward fuselage tray. Here just offering it up to the rear, or sorry, the underside of the wing plate and just marking where the glue is about to go so that I don't put too much glue and have overspill around the outside of it. Application of U-Hure or whatever glue you choose to use. Just smudge it about so you get a nice smooth, even coat of glue. Once you're happy the glue is cured, moving on to the forward fuselage former. Again, just apply a small amount of glue, smudge it around so that you get a nice even application, and allow it to dry. Next step is installing the forward and rear bulkheads, including the intake, EDF and your thrust tube. Unfortunately, the video file was corrupted when it came to uploading to the video here, so as you can see here, I'm just finishing off the thrust tube. We've installed the EDF and the intake, including the mounts, and it all fits pretty well. Pretty simple part of the build process there. Here we're just offering up the ESC and just eyeballing the space that we have for the wires and the distance needed to cover. Next step is the exhaust bulkhead. Just be careful with this part. And when I say that, I actually installed it upside down. And then later on in the build, when it came to adding the side panels, realised that and I had to cut it away and reposition it. So just make sure you don't put it on in this orientation, you flip it round and put it on the underside. Here we have the side panels. Now these are the belly side panels. I was just measuring it up here, just test fitting, just to ensure that the size is what's required. Before I did that, moved on to the 3D printed nose scoop. The reason I did this is so that I can have this aligned to the front, and then I know that I have the right amount of distance between the exhaust bulkhead and the nose cone. Sorry, the intake. Small weight in it and allow it to cure. So now moving on to the side panels. Just gently forming it, pulling it across the table, just to get that nice curve from the rear to the front. Add a small amount of glue, whatever your choice of glue is, and along the edge that makes a contact to the wing plate. Perfect fit. And here we have some spacers as well. Now the spacers can be used in the step prior to this. However, I'll put on the 3D printed nose scoop, which also helps you align to the right direction that's needed. A little additional glue on the side of the EDF intake. And then once you've got that there, just tape it up and allow the glue to cure. And exact same on the opposite side of the belly panel sides. Small amount of glue, and along the contact surface as well. Again, offer it up, make sure it's nice fit. I've still to try the pins. I've seen other builds where people use modelling pins hold into place. I just use a bit of tape. Now that the intake protector and side panels have installed, it's time to move back onto the belly panel. So again, just test fit it up, make sure you're happy with the positioning and your cutouts on the EDF bulkheads and the contact surfaces on the build. Just apply a small amount of glue across all the contact surfaces. Once you're happy with that, offer it up to the fuselage and just gently tease it into position. Add a little fiddling about just to make sure I was happy with the alignment on the exhaust. As you can see there, that's slightly out of position. However, that's due to me installing the exhaust bulkhead upside down. Again, moving on to the front, just offering it up, pressing it against it just to make sure that all the contact surfaces are met. Flip it over, add a small weight and allow it to cure. Moving on to the lower outer bulkheads. Once the glue has cured, as you can see, I had some tape on there just to support it at the bend near the rear of the thrust tube. On the side panels, there is markings on the side panels just to show where these bulkheads are located. Small amount of glue on the contact surfaces, not too much. I've just put glue on one part and shared it on the other one so that there's just enough glue to make it stick and not have a surplus glue oozing out. Working from the back to the front. And install all the bulkheads. Here we have the servo reinforcement panels. Just removing the slots, applying some Yoo-hoo, offering it up to where it's due to go, and slide it into position. And do the same with the opposite side as well. Here is the part where I realised that the exhaust bulkhead was on upside down, so just carefully removed it as best as I could and then reposition it and glue it back on. Next step is the tailboom inners and the tail reinforcer blocks. Again, quite simple, straightforward step. Small amount of glue on the inners, apply it to the surface, and then the tailboom supports. Small amount of glue again on one side, and then smudge it about just to get a nice smooth even application. All contact surfaces, and then just apply it to the fuselage. On with the next level. Slide into position, and then the lower fuselage steps and the servo reinforcers. Again, this is a very straightforward build. Pretty quick as well, so just test fitting these parts. Once happy that they all slot into position, apply a small amount of glue onto the contact surfaces along the bulkheads, and then slide it into position. A little bit of tape just to help keep it in place and allow the glue to cure. Now we're on to the lower fuselage sides outer, and then the bulkheads 1, 2 and 3. So as before, small amount of glue, offered it up. When it was in position, I just used a pen just to mark it so that I could see on the wing plate where the sides would meet. Applied a small amount of glue on there as well, just so that all contact surfaces were met. Offer it up and just glue it into position. Remove away any excess foam. Onto the bulkheads. Once I have them all lined out in place, just offer them up just to see it's a wee test fit, make sure that they were fine. Small amount of glue on the locator posts. Offer it up and slide it into position again. Very simple. And allow the glue to cure. Next step is the Bulkhead 4 and RX tray. Small amount of glue again on the contact surfaces at the rear and also on the receiver tray itself. Slide into position and offer it up. And just again allow the glue to set. Now moving on to the cockpit support pieces. I didn't actually install the thrust tube, sorry, not the thrust tube, the thrust vectoring mount. Here we're using the cockpit supports, gluing the contact surfaces and using tape just to support it. Next step is the magnet panel onto the cockpit support sides. Very simple, stick that on and just allow it to cure. Now with the electrics. I chose to use a gyro in this build. I thought it might help as it was a new design, untested. I thought let's put a wee gyro in it just to help control any instability that I may have found. However, later on, I'm not too sure if you've seen the CG test that I did. I thought it was better to remove the gyro and actually feel how the plane flew itself rather than have some electrical, mechanical aids to help the flight itself. Once I had it wired up, put all the servos in place, aligned all the wires where it was due to go, and then moving on to the thrust test. Here we have the largest battery. I think it was a 4000 milliamp I had in it, which was too big for the jet, but it showed that there was enough over 1:1 to get it moving. Here I took the battery out. Test it. I usually test at a horizontal angle like this. If it goes above 45 degrees, then we know we have 1:1 thrust to weight ratio and it will fly. So that was at half throttle. We punch at full throttle and it goes. Next step is the vertical stabilizer trailing edges. Quite simple, test fit, works, happy with how it is. Small amount of glue on one side, offer it up to the two of them, and just get a nice smooth even application of glue over both surfaces, and then apply it to the fuselage. And allow that to cure. The exhaust nozzle, 3D printed again, looks fantastic. Just offer up a small amount of glue to the exhaust bulkhead, make sure the glue is tacky, and allow it to cure. Here adding some additional balsa strips to the front. With my flying styles and trees and things, low ground cover, it tends to help protect the front of the leading edge. Next step in the build is the upper fuselage corner reinforcers and the fuselage sides. Here we're just applying a small amount of glue to the contact surfaces for the inner reinforcer. Offer up the inner reinforcer and put it into place, and just make sure that the sides, the end pieces, are making contact to the bulkheads. Give that a little time just to cure a bit, and then use and then moving on to the upper reinforcer outers. Apply a small amount of glue again to the contact surfaces, and then a thin bead of glue along the reinforcer itself. Offer them up to the two of them and smudge them together to get a nice smooth application all the way along the surface. Once you have that, just offer it up and allow it to cure. Moving on to the fuselage sides. Test fit. See that once it's in position you're happy with it. Here I'm just using a pen and marking when it's up and onto the wing plate, where I might apply a small amount of glue onto the wing plate just to ensure that the contact surface is met. While applying some glue to the contact surfaces on the supports, as you can see I'm doing the whole fuselage itself. This helps give it a little bit of air time to allow the glue to become tacky, and then offer up the supports, offer up the side panels. Once you've got the side panels in place, I'm just taping it up using the exhaust bulkhead. Next step is the forward fuselage tops. Again, small amount of glue on both surfaces. A little bit more. Just smudge it about so you've got a nice even application all along the contact surface. Line it up into place. As you can see, I've already feathered out the edges. And then along the canopy support structure, add a small amount of glue there. Offer up and slide into place. Make sure the glue is tacky. Once you're happy with the position, just allow it to set. Next step is the fuselage top and the canopy. Here I have marked up on the fuselage top a small panel that I can use to access the receiver or the gyro. Here I'm just making a wee tab as a tooth so that we can attach that to the underside of the panel, so that it's just like a wee locator pin. At the back here, building a support tray just so that we can house a magnet for the panel itself. Some glue, make sure it's tacky, and apply it to the fuselage. Just measure it up against the top piece. Add the magnet to make sure we're happy with the fit. Once you're happy with the fit, just apply the magnet, some hot glue, and on the panel itself just mark it where it should be, cut around it and remove some of the excess foam. Using some hot glue, we'll attach the magnet to the little bridge panel. Just trimming away, I've used a bit of sellotape there just so it's nice and smooth going in and out of the panel. Happy with the fit. A little hatch seems to work pretty well. So moving on to securing the top panel itself. Along the contact surfaces, just apply a good amount of glue, whatever your chosen choice of glue is. And as I do with certain other pieces, apply glue along the whole surface, giving it a little bit of air time to help the glue become more tacky. Offer it up, use the locator pins at the back of the EDF bulkheads, and then tape it down around the exhaust panel as there's a slight curve near the rear end of the fuselage. Tape it down for there. As you can see, it's slightly lifted at the front, but working forward, just using some tape, holding it down all the way along to the top of the panel, right at the front where the canopy goes. Just allowing it time to cure and make sure it's set fully. Happy with that. Just checking to see there is no more gaps. There's a couple of small gaps here and there, but using a couple of extra pieces of tape just to secure it down. Make sure it's got a good contact. 3D printed the canopy and just marking on it there where it's going to go, so that when it comes to trimming and sanding, I'm not trimming away too much. The exciting part, trimming, sanding. As you can see, we've just fast forward. I've used some razor blade just to trim away as much of the foam as possible. I've chosen here to do the non-moving rudders and having the flying configuration as an elevon setup. Here we've cut out the 1mm slots for the carbon spars. Small amount of glue on both sides, and as you can see I'm just rubbing both of them together so there's not too much of an excess. Slide it in, a little bit of tape, pull it together and make sure it's nice and tight fit, and allow it to set. And the same with the opposite rudder. Once you're happy with it and give it time to set and allow the glue to cure, offer it up to the fuselage itself and put some glue on the contact surfaces, slide the pin in and make sure it's in position. Same on the opposite side. Just make sure it's lined up nice and flush. Once the glue is cured, remove the excess tape. And there you have it, a completed model of the Su-75. Unfortunately in this build I don't have the video footage of the moving rudder vators. Unfortunately I must have overwritten it and formatted it in the new video so that I don't lose any more files becoming corrupt later on. As you can see here we have them operating, so good luck with the build, good luck with flying, and have a fantastic time. Thanks pilots, thanks for watching.